Marcus Chun had been falling through the void for what felt like hours, though his suit's chronometer insisted it had only been 17 minutes since the transport exploded. The emergency beacon pulsed weakly against his chest, its red light barely visible through his cracked visor. Around him, debris from the civilian transport Meridian drifted like metallic snow against the star field. He should have been dead. The explosion that tore through the ship's hull had thrown him clear, but his emergency suit was designed for short-term exposure, not extended survival in the vacuum between worlds. The nearest shipping lane was 48 hours away, and his oxygen would last maybe 6. Through the static of his damaged comm system, Marcus caught fragments of distress calls. Other survivors, scattered across space like seeds in the wind. But there was something else too, alien chatter on frequencies he didn't recognize. The language was harsh, full of clicks and growls that made his translator struggle to parse meaning. Small ones scattered, easy prey, hunt while they still breathe. A chill that had nothing to do with the cold of space ran down Marcus's spine. The Kethra. He'd heard stories about the reptilian raiders who hunted the outer systems, taking prisoners for their blood sports. They must have been the ones who attacked the transport. A shadow passed across the stars. Then another. Marcus forced himself to remain perfectly still as sleek, predatory ships glided through the debris field. They moved like hunting sharks, graceful and deadly. Through his visor, he could see their hulls gleaming dull green in the starlight, covered in the ritual scars that marked Kethra war vessels. One of the ships paused near a piece of wreckage. A tractor beam lanced out, pulling something aboard. Marcus's blood ran cold when he realized what they were collecting. Not salvage, but people. Survivors in emergency suits, still alive and struggling. The comm chatter grew excited, full of what his translator rendered as laughter. Cruel, hungry sounds that spoke of sport and suffering to come. Marcus had heard the stories. The Kethra kept their prey alive for as long as possible, enjoying the hunt even after capture. A massive ship emerged from behind a twisted section of hull plating. This was no raider. It was a Kethra hunting barge, easily 10 times the size of the smaller vessels. Its surface bristled with weapons and sensor arrays, and Marcus could see the glowing ports where smaller craft docked like remora fish on a whale. Blood Sire, came a voice over the alien comm channel. The word needed no translation. It was a title of respect, fear, and absolute authority. Report, Packlings. The voice that answered was deep and resonant, carrying undertones that made Marcus's bones ache even through the vacuum. Sabanta nomans rakubara taliva bluutsira. The young ones are strong. They will provide good sport for the cubs. Excellent. And the ship's cargo? Medical supplies and terraforming equipment. Nothing of value. The hunt is the treasure, not their metal trinkets. Bring the prey aboard. Marcus watched in horror as the survivor collection continued. Each person pulled from the wreckage meant another soul condemned to whatever nightmare awaited aboard that hunting barge. These weren't soldiers or fighters. They were colonists, families heading to the outer worlds to start new lives. Engineers, doctors, teachers. People whose only crime was being in the wrong place when predators came calling. His oxygen meter pulsed yellow. For hours remaining. But Marcus Chin wasn't just a colonist. Before signing up for transport to the frontier worlds, he'd spent 12 years in Earth Defense Force Special Operations. He'd trained for situations exactly like this, though he'd never imagined facing them alone in a vacuum with failing life support. The tactics came back to him like muscle memory. First rule of survival: assess your assets. His emergency suit carried basic tools: a plasma cutter for debris, emergency patches for hull breaches, a short-range transmitter, and a single charge pack that could power any of his equipment for limited periods. Second rule: know your enemy. The Kethra were hunters by nature and culture. They valued prey that fought back, considered it sport. But they also had weaknesses. Their ships relied on biological neural networks that could be disrupted, and their hierarchical pack structure meant cutting off the head would paralyze the body. Third rule: adapt or die. Marcus began moving through the debris field, using twisted metal to mask his approach toward the hunting barge. His suit's maneuvering jets were nearly spent, so he had to time each movement perfectly, using momentum and the occasional gentle push-off floating wreckage to guide his path. The smaller raider ships were still collecting survivors, their crews focused on the hunt. That gave him an opportunity. Marcus spotted one ship that had just picked up 2 people, a woman and what looked like a teenager. The ship's airlock was still cycling as it prepared to return to the barge. Marcus drew his plasma cutter and checked its charge. One good shot. That was all he would get. The raider ship's hull was armored, but Marcus had studied Kethera designs during his military service. Their ships were grown rather than built, using biomechanical techniques that made them incredibly resilient, but also vulnerable to specific types of damage. The neural clusters that controlled their vessels were located just behind the main sensor array. He waited until the ship was directly between him and a large piece of debris, then fired. The plasma beam lanced through space, invisible except where it struck the ship's hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the raider vessel shuddered and began to list to one side, its systems clearly malfunctioning. Over the comm channels, alien voices erupted in confusion and rage. The Kethera crew was struggling to regain control, but Marcus had done his job too well. The ship's biological computer was dying, taking its guidance systems with it. Pack leader, we have lost control. The humans, they fight back. Impossible. They are prey animals, weak and soft. Marcus smiled grimly behind his visor. Time for lesson number 2. He kicked off from a piece of debris and caught the drifting raider ship as it tumbled past. The plasma cutter's charge was spent, but he still had options. Marcus found the ship's emergency airlock and began working on a manual override. Kethera technology was advanced, but they still needed ways for their crews to get inside if the automated systems failed. The lock cycled open, and Marcus pulled himself into the ship's interior. The atmosphere was thick and humid, smelling of musk and reptilian musk. Red lighting bathed everything in hellish shadows. 2 Kethera warriors lay unconscious near the airlock, apparently stunned by the ship's violent tumbling. They were smaller than Marcus had expected, about human-sized but lean and wiry with mottled green scales and too many teeth. One was beginning to stir. Marcus didn't hesitate. His military training had included extensive hand-to-hand combat, including techniques for dealing with non-human opponents. He struck quickly and precisely, targeting nerve clusters that would keep them unconscious without causing permanent damage. Despite everything, these were still living beings, and Marcus wasn't an executioner. The 2 human prisoners were secured in what looked like a holding cell designed for cargo rather than people. The woman was unconscious, but the teenager, a boy maybe 16 years old, was awake and terrified. "Please," the boy whispered when he saw Marcus. "Don't hurt us anymore." "I'm human," Marcus said, pulling off his helmet now that he was in atmosphere. "I'm here to help." The relief on the boy's face was heartbreaking. I thought we were all going to die." "Not today," Marcus promised. "What's your name?" "David. David Martinez. This is my mom, Elena. We were traveling to Haven Colony to join my dad." Marcus checked Elena's pulse. She was alive, but had obviously been stunned by some kind of weapon. "She'll be okay, but we need to move fast. Can you operate basic ship controls?" I played simulation games. Some flight training in school. It would have to do." Marcus helped David free his mother, then began examining the raider ship's systems. The biological computer was badly damaged, but some functions remained online. More importantly, this ship had weapons and a functioning comm system. Over the alien channels, he could hear increasing agitation. The hunting barge was demanding status reports from the damaged ship, and the other raiders were moving to investigate. "Pack leader, the small ship does not respond. Permission to board and investigate." "Granted, but be cautious. Something is wrong here." Marcus smiled and activated the ship's weapons systems. The interface was alien, but intuitive. The Kethera designed their ships for aggressive use. He had 8 plasma bolts charged and ready, plus a small complement of guided missiles. "David," he called over his shoulder, "can you help your mother? We're about to get very busy." The boy nodded, supporting his still groggy mother as she began to regain consciousness. Through the ship's sensor display, Marcus could see 2 raider vessels approaching. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never faced real resistance from their prey. That was about to change. Marcus waited until they were close, then opened fire.